Today we're going to be talking about perm design. We're going to be talking about design decisions, patterns, and how we can change the effect of someone's hair. All right, what is their existing texture? Is it fine, medium, coarse? What's the desired texture that they want? Do they want it wavy? Do they want it curly? Where will I position the texture? And which design principle will I use? Will I use repetition, alternation, contrast? Okay, you need to know the type of texture that they want, which will determine what size rods you'll use. So if they're a little old lady and they want really, really tight curls, you're going to use those little itty bitty blue rods. If they're a young person and they just want waves, you're going to use maybe those peach or orange rods. So it all depends on what they want. Tight, firm curls, large, loose curls, waves, and what technique are you going to use to wrap the hair around the rods? Okay, this is just a review for you. The two basic wrapping patterns are overlap or crokinole. Okay, so the hair keeps overlapping on the rod. You get a nice lift at the scalp and you get curls. The spiral, okay, you do not overlap. You want the hair to sit next to each other going up the rod, and it's a longer wave pattern. It's consistent along the length of the strand. So when I keep overlapping this hair, the middle of the rod keeps getting larger. So my tightest curl will be at the end, and then it'll get looser, looser, looser as I wrap. This one you'll have the same size curl from scalp to ends. Okay, when you're thinking about what you want the outcome to be, okay, so you want to be the relationship between form and texture. So how wide is this hair going to get if I use those little tiny rods? How do they interplay with each other to create a total composition? So what the form is, do they have a bob and then I'm going to make them really wide, or do they have an increase, a 180, and it's just going to give them some texture, and how much the hair is going to shrink up when I perm it. Okay, and you can see a good example of this. You've got that length, then it gets a little shorter with waves, and then it gets shorter yet with curls. It also increases and expands in the horizontal line. Okay, you'll get a lot of partial perms where people wear their hair short, but they want some lift and some style. It will support their style up there, whatever they do to it if they get a perm. So you will only be perming certain parts of the head, so zonal. Where you blend into the straight hair, if there's straight hair and then there's curly hair, and you don't want it to be a contrast, you're going to want to put those rods in their candlestick. So if you put them in their candlestick, they'll just blend in. If you put them in traditionally, like we do horizontally, you'll have curl, 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 straight. Okay, so you'll see a definite line between those two where that comes together. Doesn't look very nice. The candlestick makes it all blend together. Okay, on this one, they just added a little bit of texture right to the bang area. This one, I have never seen anybody get one like this unless it's like the stack perm that we talked about in the last one, where we are wrapping this. We're just wrapping the ends so that we just get some curl around here, and we're leaving this straight. This one makes sense. A lot of people have trouble with their crown going flat if they wear their hair short, or even if they wear it long, they want more volume right in there. So you can just give them a little bit of boost right there with the way that you wrap the perm. Okay, you can customize. All right, so I had posted a video on Canvas for people that were caught up or they were virtual, and all they did was they permed the root. That's That's something you don't see very often, but that's what they did on this girl, just to make her hair a little bit puffier right there. So you can see the curl is just right at the root and then nothing. Or on this scenario, they permed her whole hair strand. This one I never could understand, because when this grows out, you're just gonna have this little curl growing out the whole way down. So that's a little strange. All right, away from the base, this one makes sense. This makes it look very natural, like someone got a perm a long time ago. It doesn't look like a little old granny perm, and that you can achieve just simply by holding the hair down when you roll so that it's not on the base, or by stacking it, okay? This will give you a very natural effect. Doesn't look like they permed her at all on top and it was just back here. Okay, there's different ways that you can wrap a perm. You can wrap it away from the face. This one's the most dangerous for breakage, however, so you're going to want to use picks to keep those rubber bands from creasing into the hair and causing it to break there. Towards the face, this is how hair naturally grows. From the apex to the front, it grows forward. So wrapping it forward is more in tune with what the hair's doing, and you have less chance of breakage. From a side part, I've done this. I've wrapped the hair traditionally, and then the last few rods, instead of wrapping them this way, I turn them sideways for a side part. And clockwise and counterclockwise, that's if you want this big wave, which hopefully nobody ever asks for that hairstyle. Okay, here's your design principles. Repetition. This is very common. You put all white perm rods in someone's hair, or all gray. Every strand is the same amount of curliness. This one I love. Alternation. Use bigger rods interspersed with smaller rods. It looks really, really nice and much more natural. So this is a very, very nice option, alternation. Progression, they went from smaller to larger. A lot of times, even if we're wrapping this whole head, say with white, if the hair was this short, we would progress down to a smaller rod because we wouldn't be able to fit the white in there anymore. We'd go down to a gray and maybe even a pink, okay? And then contrast. Parts of it are curly and parts of it are straight. Okay, perm patterns. Okay, also known as wrapping patterns. It helps you to organize how your perm service is performed. So there we have our basic 9 section right here. And here they're showing bricolage for spiral. So the perm rods always dangle down from the parting. And you can see the parting is approximately the same size as the end of the perm rod. On these, we want these sections to be the same length and width as the perm rod. Okay, rectangle pattern, also called the 9 section. Rectangular section subdivided into rectangular bases. Okay, the front can be wrapped away or towards the face. There's those two. All right, contour pattern. I have wrapped these. I honestly do not see any benefit to it other than you don't have those straight little lines when you're doing a regular perm. But what you would have to do is you would start your first piece like a candlestick. And then every section after that, you would be taking it slightly in a V shape, and in a V shape, and in a V shape, and in a V shape. And eventually you would get around that curve, and then you would just wrap it in rectangular sections. Okay? So there's a lot of V shapes, whereas on this one, this is the only place where we generally have the V-shaped partings, is in this area right here. What do you do with the side? Well, they say, generally speaking, you do a diagonal forward, so you would wrap them this way, or a diagonal back this way. You could candlestick them or wrap them straight down. Okay, bricolage. This is one of my favorite ones. This is super duper natural looking because you have no rows, everything is broken up. Okay, and you wrap it just like a brick wall. Okay, so if you ever get stuck, just look at our walls in here and you will see there's blocks in the wall. Nothing is ever lined up perfectly above each other. So you start each row with 1 or 2, and then it's very important that you complete that row before moving on to the next row. So you have to do 1. If there's any hair left here, you wrap it. Then you start with 2 in the middle. If there's any hair left here, you wrap it before moving on. 1, any hair left over. 2, any hair left over. And you proceed like that. From the apex, you wrap down. From this way, you wrap forward. All right, and I talked about the spiral perm, and you've got the they're dangling, and the bases are much smaller. They're the same size as the end of the rod. They're down here. They're using a bricklay pattern down here from the occipital bone down. I would only do that if the hair was fairly short. Okay, zonal, again, it's just to create an effect in an area. This is a good example where someone needs volume in the crown of their head. It says works very good for clients with short hair. Okay, change the texture, change the effect. So they're just showing you there. This is the same girl. This is the same girl. Looks completely different by adding texture. All right. Before reaching for a perm product or tools, the designer must first visualize the final texture outcome, true or false. The 2 basic wrapping techniques for rotating strands of hair around a perm tool are overlap and spiral, true or false. Adding texture expands the form and creates the illusion of shorter. Overlap or crokinole technique produces curls, and the spiral wrapping technique creates an. You can apply design principles to texture within zones, along a strand, or throughout an. The contour pattern is versatile and adapts to the contours or blank of the head. In the bricklay perm pattern, rods are positioned in a staggered configuration to avoid what? Okay, number 1. True, you must visualize. You must know what the desired outcome is. Curly, wavy, what they're going for. Number 2, true. Overlap and spiral are the 2 basic wrapping techniques. Number 3, when you add curl, it will expand the form, make it wider, and it will create the illusion of shorter lengths. Number 4, the overlap technique produces curls and undulating waves. That just means like this, waves. The spiral wrapping technique creates an elongated texture, okay, because it's dangling, it's a little bit longer. Number 6, you can apply design principles to texture within zones, along a strand, or throughout an entire composition. So you could do contrast in a strand where you just wrap the base to give it volume there, and you leave it straight everywhere else. Number 7, the contour pattern adapts to the contours or curves of the head. And in number 8, the bricklay pattern helps you avoid splits. You don't see those perfect little rows in the head from wrapping a 9 section. Okay, thank you very much.